I know, I know sometimes work can be quite busy during the week, but I still encourage us to make out time, even if you're investing 30 minutes per day or at max 3 hours per week to look at the material again is going to be a great one. You never can tell what tomorrow will look like. Um, for some of us, we definitely will have responsibility to manage the safety functions of our organization. And it's just important that you are well equipped to deliver on the very expectations that company have with you as far as safety is concerned. So I want to still remind us as we're in class on Zoom, those of us on Zoom, please try not to allow your mic to come up live and your camera except when asked to do so. In managing hazards, there is a process we follow. There is a procedure that we need to follow. When we began last week discussing health, safety, and environment, one important point we made was that HSC is about managing hazards in our operations. We also established that no one organization can boast that they have no hazard associated with what they do. Every occupation always have its own inherent hazard. So sometimes we hear people refer to HSE as occupational safety and health, and it's still the same thing. So, and I said, in a summary language, it's about making sure that HS is about making sure that the hazards in our operations are properly managed. For what purpose? So that people will not be impacted, so that environment will not be impacted by our hazard, so that the asset of the company will not also be impacted, and also so that the reputation of our organization will not be impacted as well. So this morning, we want to begin by looking at the processes involved in managing hazards. So the subject we're looking at is hazard and effect managing process. And the acronym HEMP, we call it HEMP. If we are to give it a definition, what is health safety? What is a hazard and effect management process? HEMP. It is the process that enables us to identify. That's the key word there. The first word there is identify. The process that enables us to identify the hazards in an HSE critical activity. HSE critical activity means the same thing as operations with high level of hazards, or some people may say operations with high level of risk. So HEMP, is the procedure you follow to identify the hazards in your hazardous activities or HSE critical activities. Apart from identifying the hazards, it's also about identifying the effect. Look at it, and the effect. So two identifications happen here. So it's about identifying hazard and identifying the effect of the hazard. So if you say that the hazard in this work is fall, F-A-L-L, maybe it's a work at height. You've identified fall as a hazard. Now, what is the effect? You need to also tell us, identify what effect could come to play if an individual, while working at height, falls from height. So you may begin to put effects like the person could have dislocation, the person could have fracture on any part of the body, the person could even go unconscious, the person may sustain major injury, the person may even die as well. You understand? Worst case scenario. Those are effects. So hazard and effect management process is a process that we follow to identify the hazards in our operation and the effects of those hazards. Why are we doing that? With a view, I continue, with a view to eliminating them. So the hemp is giving us that another information that when it comes to managing hazards, apart from the first thing you do, which is identify the hazard and identify the corresponding effect of each hazard. And let me dwell more on effect a little more. Remember, like I said last week, when you identify effect of a hazard, you have to do it across the four elements that we are trying to protect. So you need to ask yourself, what will be the effect of this hazard identified on people? What will be the effect on environment? What will be the effect on our assets? What will be the effect on our reputation? So effects of hazard identified must always. Okay, I still really want to encourage us and urge us to please not allow our mic to come in. Mr. Solomon, I don't know if you can go to the back end and do the setting again on this meeting that mic should be mute when people come in at the back end. Thank you. Hello. You understand? Thank you. Good morning. So, when we consider effect of hazards, and it must be across the four elements, like I said, that we're trying to protect. People, what's the effect of this hazard identified on people? Imagine that maybe you work, I used Dangote, for example, last week, the Dangote cement, and we're asking, if you work in Dangote cement, what hazard can you readily identify? So many. I think the one that came to our mind was the hazard of inhaling the particulate of cement. Yes. Now, that's a hazard. Now, the particulate being allowed in the atmosphere. So you ask yourself, what will be the impact on effect on people? People could inhale it and it could give them some health condition, maybe lung diseases and so on. What is the effect on the environment? Definitely it's going to contaminate the air. Our air quality will drop, maybe what some of us may call air pollution. What is the effect on our assets? Maybe because of those particulates, they may begin to settle on our equipment, thereby impacting on the longevity or the shelf life of that equipment, because dust are gathering on it or particulates are gathering on it. Maybe if they have access even to the oil that runs the engine, it contaminates it and it can even damage our engine. That could be the effect on the asset. What is the effect on our reputation? When people are getting sick and probably coming up with cancer because of them inhaling those limestone element or particulate, and we still have a lot of people probably coming down, dying, going into critical illnesses because of that. The public will begin to consider Dangote Group as not being responsible enough to protect her people, and that is image damage. You understand? So when we look at hemp, the first thing first hemp is telling us a managing process is identify the hazard and identify the effect of the hazard. Now it goes on to tell us what we need to do after doing that. He said when you identify that, you try to see how you can eliminate them. See the word? Eliminate them. And that's always the best. If I can eliminate the hazard in my operation, whoa, that's good news. That's big, big good news. Life made easy. But bad news is that more than 90, 95 or even more percent of hazard in every company activity cannot be eliminated. Very few of them can be eliminated. It means that people need to work with those hazards, and that is why the subject like HSC is popular. Because working with those hazards available inherent in what you're doing, the subject becomes, how do I make sure it does not impact me? How do I make sure it does not impact the environment? How do I make sure it does not impact the asset? That's not the question. So, but that notwithstanding, in managing hazard, we still recognize the possibility of eliminating hazard identified. I'll give you an example of hazard that can be eliminated. If I work with electrical installation organization, maybe AEDC, maybe TCN, and we want to do a major maintenance job in one of our substations or a transformer station, you know, the major hazard associated with that activity is electrocution. Can it be eliminated? Yes. How can we eliminate it? Turn off supply of electricity, and that's all. I think some of us do it even at home. When you try to probably fix something and you feel like I don't want to get electrocuted, you just go to your control box and you turn it off first. When you're done, you go supply again. Once you turn off on the control, you have cut off entirely the possibility of electrocution. That is possible. But like I said, most occupational hazards can scarcely be eliminated. So hemp went ahead to tell us, if you cannot eliminate the hazard you identified, what should be your next approach to it? So he used the word or control them. Or control them. And the goal of controlling hazard is also indicated. The essence of controlling hazard is to bring the hazard to a level we call ALARP. ALARP. The essence of controlling hazard that cannot be eliminated is to reduce the effect of that hazard to as low as reasonably practicable. What does that mean? What does control mean? What does it mean to reduce it to as low as reasonably practicable? ALARP. So as HSC, someone who is trained in safety, when you hear ALARP, please remember what it means, because it's a common language in HSC. In companies, you hear maybe your supervisor tell you reduce to ALARP, reduce to ALARP, reduce to ALARP. You understand? What that language means is bring it down to a level we can tolerate. Reduce that hazard to a level that is allowed, that we can allow. A level where the effect is no more significant on people, is no more significant on environment, is no more significant on our asset, where the effect is no more significant on our reputation. That's ALARP. That's ALARP. That's ALARP. I'll give an example of a ALARP situation. Maybe you are working in a confined space. We'll talk about confined space maybe next week. A confined space, one of the hazards in confined space is possibility of oxygen level being below the expected level. Once you work in a place and the oxygen level is below 19.5, it is said to be oxygen deficient. And if you work in that place for a little time, the person may go unconscious, suffocate. You understand? So having an oxygen level of a space below 19.5 is a hazardous environment. Now, and I will say maybe that's the situation we have, and I will make comment like reduce to ALARP or control to ALARP. What it means is, in that context, what it means is bring the level of oxygen to up a little to a point that is healthy for human beings to walk in. And what is that? If you're ventilating, ventilate. If you are, yeah, of course, ventilation is the major way, except if you try to ventilate and you're not getting the maximum level you want, you can now use self-contained breathing apparatus. Let's leave that for confined space safety discussion. But when we say reduce to a lab, it means bring the oxygen level to at least 19.5, but not more than 21 or 21 point something. Because once you begin to hit that above, getting to 23, we now say it is oxygen rich. And an oxygen rich environment is vulnerable to another hazard, which is fire outbreak. Excuse me. So, this definition of hemp has given us all we need to know about managing hazards. And what did he say? He simply said in summary that if you want to manage hazard, these are the 4 steps to follow. Number 1, you are to identify the hazards and the effect of the hazards. Number 2, you are to evaluate the hazard you have identified. We'll call it assess. Number 3, you are to control the hazards, provide controls for the hazards. And then number 4, you are to make a plan B for your control just in case it fails. I'm going to use a case to illustrate this whole thing. You understand? And in everything you're doing, whether you are for the hazard you identify, for the assessment information, the evaluation you've done about the hazard, the information you got, the control measures you're using for the hazard, and the recovery measures you're using for the hazard, they must all be documented in a place so that we can have your documentation, a register of your hazard and your management strategy for them. But if anybody asks you, how many steps are involved in hazard management? There are 4. Identify the hazard, alongside identify the effect of each hazard. Evaluate the hazard or assess it. I'm going to show us how to assess the hazard. There is a tool we call, risk assessment matrix, RAM. I will display it very soon and we'll see it. And then the next thing you do, the third thing is, for those hazards that could not be eliminated, if you observe elimination is not there as one of the procedures, in as much as it's in there in the definition, but we didn't put it as one of the procedures for managing hazard. Why? Because of the first statement I made earlier, that more than 95% of occupational hazards cannot be eliminated. So most times, control strategies are what we deploy for hazard. We'll come to that. So the third thing I do is provide control and then have a recovery measure. Recovery measure is more like, just in case my control fails, this is what I will do. It's like saying have a plan B in case your plan A fails and all that. And of course, I say we have to make sure it's documented. Let's put all this, let's take a case and see how this works. Let's imagine you're into construction and then you guys have just built a house or developed an estate, but there is an infrastructure that is needed very urgently in that estate, and that is electricity. So you had applied to AEDC, and they had also scheduled that they will come over on a particular day to draw lines into the estate. When the men from AEDC are coming to carry out this assignment of provide electrical lines into the estate, what are they going to come with? They will come with ladder, because it's majorly work at height. They will come with harness. Harness is the safety belt that you actually will wear when you are on height. In case what you're standing on fails, the belt can sustain you. They will go with the appropriate hand glove, trying to also further ensure there's no electrocution. They will also go with helmet, just in case there's a fall, vital part of the body like the skull will not be badly impacted. And the list will go on and on and on. Now the question is, what is the hazard in this work? Let's identify one. It is fall, because it is work at height. There are many hazards. You can identify maybe electrocution, maybe the harsh condition, the sun. You understand? There are many of them. You can even talk about the wires probably pricking someone and injuring someone. You can say many things. That there could be many hazards, but let's just work with one. Let us work with one. So four, I've identified the hazard. What is the effect of these four? Wow. If any of these NEPA guys fall from that pool, what thing will happen? You write it, you begin to write. You understand? Those are the effects. Once you identify the hazard and effect, we usually do it on a landscape and what you call document. You just draw a column, hazards and effect. You understand? And remember, the effect of a hazard could be as many as possible. You have to identify all of them. Now you begin to assess the hazard. What does it mean to assess hazard? You want to find out the likelihood of the hazard happening and how serious the effect will be if it happens. I said two things. In assessing hazards, there are two information you want to get out. One, likelihood of occurrence, and two, severity of impact. You've identified the hazard. You're not asking yourself, this if it happen, person if fall from a work like this, as a work, this kind of electrical work. Can somebody fall? For you to answer that question of likelihood, let me turn this thing so that it can be easier and make just a moment. Good. Can you close that window a little from the other end? No, the other one. Just drag one up. Beautiful. Okay. I'm sure it will be clearer with your electronic version of the material, but I'm sure you can see it. We use this tool, it's called risk assessment matrix, to carry out the step 2 of HEMP, which is assess hazard. And I'm taking a case of a hazard we've identified 4. How can you evaluate that somebody can fall from height in this operation? If you observe, this tool is divided into 2 major parts: increasing likelihood and consequences. And when it comes to consequences, we're talking about severity of consequence. These are the severities: 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are the range of severities. And again, consequences, like I said earlier, can only be on the 4 elements we are trying to protect. You understand? Of course, this community here, we are referring to our reputation. Is that okay? This is people, asset, reputation, environment. You understand? And then likelihood is talking about probability of the hazard occurring. So I'll ask a question like, can somebody fall from this our operation from height? How do you answer that question? You ask yourself, has it been heard of? That's the first one. Has it been heard of that somebody fell in an operation like this? You now say, if you get an information that it has never been heard of that somebody fell in an operation like this within our industry. Do you know what the difference between industry and company? Industry is a word we use to represent all companies that do the same thing. Example, you hear financial industry. In financial industry or finance industry, you have companies like GT, Zenith, First Bank, Wema Bank, and what do you call it? You mentioned all of them. All of them are members of financial industry. You hear oil and gas industry. You hear companies like Shell, ExxonMobil, Schlumberger, maybe AG, Total Fina F, and Chevron, and the list goes on. All these are companies under oil and gas sector, oil and gas industry. If you hear something like construction industry, you begin to name maybe Salini Construction. You begin to hear RCC, CCRCC, Julius Berger, maybe Cetraco, maybe Dantata and Sowe, and so on. And so these are all members of that industry. So the word industry is used to qualify companies that do similar things. If that be the case, it means since companies in an industry, their activities are similar, their hazards are also largely similar. And that is why we say, you will ask the question, when you ask the question, has it ever happened in the industry? If it has never been heard of that somebody has fallen within the industry from an operation like this, then the likelihood of it occurring is almost zero. Sorry, Solomon, if you can help me be checking at the back and back. Some people are putting on their mic. They can help me off it. If it has never been heard of, we never hear around for this our construction industry, say a person fall from operation like this. So what it simply means is that the likelihood of it in your own, that somebody will fall in this your own, is almost zero. If you observe, I didn't say zero. I say almost zero. Why? Because there is always a first time. And if you say zero, you will go and sleep, you will not do anything. But if you say almost zero, you have in mind, my own can be the beginning of the history. Let me see, provide some measures to make sure it doesn't happen. Is that okay? It has been heard of in the industry. Wow, yes. So we heard that somewhere in Madrid, this thing has happened before within the industry. The likelihood of it occurring, now that it has been heard of it never happened for your company before. But we don't hear and say, somewhere in Madrid, within our construction industry, it has happened. Then the likelihood has increased as compared to when it was never heard of. Can I zoom this? I can. Let me zoom. Sorry. Okay, so that you can see. Okay, beautiful. It has happened that the next level of likelihood is it has happened in our organization or more than once per year in the industry. It has the likelihood has increased as compared to the previous. It has happened at my location or more than once in our organization. What's the difference between D and C? D is saying, in our company, it don't happen. For my own branch, we never hear and say don't happen, shall, but in our company as a whole, it has happened. The likelihood is higher, my dear. And the other one is saying, it has even happened in my own branch. That's my location. And has happened several times in our company as a whole. The likelihood is very, very higher now. And the E say it has happened more than once per year at my branch. You see, we call it increasing likelihood. So if you call A, if you want to use number, if you call A1, or if you call A maybe 1, let's say 1, because we say like we should not use 0 outrightly, and you call B2, you call C3, you call D4, you call E5, it means It means the likelihood of E happening. I mean, when your hazard is having a likelihood of E or 5, it is extremely high. What we want you to come up with at the end of assessing your likelihood, just assign high or low, high, low, medium, high, low, medium. What's the likelihood that somebody will fall in this our operation? Let me now ask us this question. For this our electrical installation in the estate that people will climb pole, and we say the hazard is 4. What do you think the level of likelihood of 4 will be? Is it low or high or medium? If no measure is provided, that will be what? It's not true. As long as your leg go off the ground, the likelihood of you falling is high. Any job at height is a critical, it's a HSE critical activity. It's hazardous. Except measures are produced to reduce the likelihood. Let's go to the side of severity. Let me zoom it out. That's the consequence. Look at it. Please remember that these represent assets. Now, when somebody fall and the fall produce no injury, look at it. It produced no injury. Sorry, okay, I can't use these two icons at the same time. If the fall produce no injury or health effect on people, we say that the severity of that accident is 0. And what do we call an accident or incident that produce no harm? What's the name? Those of us on Zoom, you can answer also. What's the name? There's a terminology we use for it. An incident that produce no harm. An accident that produce no harm. What is the name? Please, I need an answer. How many of us were in class last week? Somebody help us. Let me not feel ashamed. Don't make me feel ashamed. Yeah, thank you, and Jonathan, that said that was a high likelihood. When an accident occurs and it produces no harm, there's a phenomenon we call that. What is that? We talked about it last week. Somebody help me, Zoom. Cynthia, if you were close by, I'll give you Coke. Yes. Yes. Cynthia, just know that I owe you Coca-Cola Coke. Cereal, sorry. Siri Theophilus, I owe you 1 Coca-Cola Coke. Very cold one. Shield. Ramatu, thank you also. It's called near miss. So if those people walking at the height, if they fall, and that fall produce no injury on people, the severity is 0. Please follow me. Leave the document so that you can catch this. We can always write it later. If the damage, if a hazard occurs and that hazard produces no damage to our asset, the severity of that hazard is 0. If it produces no effect on our reputation, the severity is 0. If it produces no effect on environment, the severity is 0. If hazard occur, if an accident happen and it produce slight injury on people, slight damage on asset, slight effect on our reputation, slight effect on environment, we say the severity is 1. You can say, I keep moving. If if an accident happen or hazard occurs and the injury it produces on people is major injury or major health effect, or it is moderate damage to our asset, or moderate effect to our reputation, or moderate effect to environment, the severity is 3. If it produces PTD, that's the full meaning of PTD is permanent total disability. You know what that means? Loss of a function in the body. When you lose any part of your body for life, that means the person is permanently disabled. Permanent total disability. One of us shared an experience from the office and from her workplace where somebody's hand was chopped off. That's PTD. That's permanent total disability, because for life, that hand don't come out. Except if you now use a what do you call it? A plastic hand. What do we call that? Is it prosthetic? Am I correct? Yes. But he has lost it for life. So if hazard occurs or accident happens and it produces PTD or produce up to 3 fatality. Fatality means death. You know, I hear people say, Kai, man, I saw one fatal accident for road. And you're like, are you serious? How many people were died there? He said, thank God, though, nobody died. That's a wrong expression. You understand? You don't use the word fatality if there's no death associated in the situation. Is that okay? So if hazard occur and is producing up to a PTD or up to 3 fatality, the severity on people is 4. If it's a major damage on our asset, major effect on reputation, major effect on environment, the severity is 4. If the fatality that hazard produces is more than 3, well, for me, I have personal issue with fatality up to 3 number before you call it, and the severity is 4. I think if it produces up to 1 fatality, the severity is still very high. If it's a massive damage to our asset, massive effect on our reputation, and massive effect on our environment, we say the severity is 5. This tool still requires you to define your benchmarks. What do I mean? As a company, what do we call, let me go to number 1, or the first one. The first one, severity of 0, does not need any special definition. No injury is no injury all over the world. No damage is no damage all over the world. But beginning from number 1, severity, what is slight injury? What you may call slight in your company injury may not be slight in my own injury. What is minor? What is major? What is moderate? Fatality does not need special definition. Death is death. PTD does not need special definition. Permanent total disability is permanent total disability anywhere in the world. But you see those terminologies, slight, minor, major, moderate, they still need special, they still need you to define what does your company call all these. My company may say if an accident happened and somebody got injured and the injury kept the person away from work for up to 1 or 2 days, is a slight injury. That may be our definition of slight. Another company may say, no, for us, so if once you stay off from work because of that injury for 1 day, that's major. We call it major. That's major for us. You can see that these definitions may vary from company to company. So it is, and there's no universal definition. What has universal is death has universal definition. No injury has a universal definition. PTD has universal definition. But every other one, you need to localize. You need to domicile your own definition. You need to sit down and say, this is what to articulate as slight. This is what we call minor as an organization. And that's how it works. Let me go back to what I was discussing. So, after assessing your hazards, you say, okay, for those hazards that have the likelihood of occurring and the effect is ranging at least from 1 till 5, you need to control. What is control? It means provide a measure that will ensure that the hazard does not impact people or assets or our reputation or our environment. So let's go back to our walk at height 4. How do we make sure somebody does not fall? What control measure can we put in place? We give ladder. Ladder is a control measure. Why? Because the person will stand. But let me just call our attention to the rule of using ladder in safety. When you walk at height, and that walk will take you more than 30 minutes, do not use ladder as a control measure. Every walk at height that will last for more than 30 minutes, ladder will not provide you an effective protection. Why? Because when you stand on a ladder, you maintain 3-point position and you have only one hand most time to walk with. What is the 3-point position? Your first leg is standing, your second leg is standing, that's 2. Usually you use one hand to hold somewhere and then you are walking with one hand. Once that happens, fatigue builds up faster. Guess what we always say in safety? Once you're fatigued, your sense of reasoning and making decision will be affected. When people are tired and they're walking, they begin to make mistakes, carry out errors. And that error could lead to the fall, could lead to the accident that we're trying to prevent. So, walk at height that will last for more than 30 minutes. What do? Build a platform. Option number 1, I'll give you many options, depending on what company can afford. Because at the end of the day, the control measure we put in place is a function of resources available. Don't forget that line. The control measure that we provide is a function of the amount of money we are ready to spend, because they will cost money. So when we walk at height, I say if it's more than 30 minutes, ladder no more effective. What are the options available? Option number 1, build a scaffold. You know what is scaffold? Anybody know scaffold? If you are a builder, if you're an engineer, you will know. Now, imagine people trying to repaint the outer part of this building. This is a 3-story building. How are they going to paint the top? They are going to build, you must have seen it, sometimes iron framework. Sometimes they use bamboo. You understand? Sometimes they use plank. But let's be assured that apart from iron, the next strongest material to use is bamboo. The tensile strength of bamboo is very high. So they build those scaffold. Scaffold simulates the floor. It's like providing a floor for people to stand. But make sure that scaffold has what we call the ray guards. You know what is ray guards? As in that barriers around you. You understand? Those barriers are so that you can neither fall away from this end or fall away from this end or from this end. A scaffold must not be plain like this table. You must have, since you're going to stand there must be a ray guard here, ray guard here, ray guard here, so that it becomes a barrier protecting you from falling. So scaffold is what to use if that work is going to last for more than 30 minutes. But if company cannot afford scaffold, what do we use again? What do we do again? Well, another higher technology before I go to the question I asked is tower crane. Anybody know tower crane? The people who fix our street light, they use it a lot. This motorized crane that will carry people up so that they can walk. You know what I'm talking about? Yes. So, but that's another money. You need money for that. You get it? So that's also another way, a better option than ladder. If we cannot afford scaffold or tower crane, what's the next option? We only have ladder. That's all we can afford. Then you need to use what we call management control if you're going to work with ladder. What's the method of management control? When somebody go up to work for 30 minutes, it comes down. Another person goes and work for 30 minutes, it comes down. A person goes and work for 30 minutes, it comes down. That's a management control. It means you're running shift. You don't want to allow someone to work for too long and build fatigue and then create accident. Now, somebody asks me, say, Amadi, what if I'm only one person I get to work with? There's nobody to run shift with. What will I do? I say, fine. Another management control method is when you work for 30 minutes, take a break to refresh. You go back, take a break. You refresh. You go back, you take a break, and so on. What point made? Ladder is our control. What does control do for you? It prevents the hazard from impacting. That's not a passing statement. It's a very big point. The objective of control measures is to prevent hazard from happening. So, Architect Solomon, help me write it down. I think I want to add it in my question. You understand? Just capture it like this. What's the key objective of control measures in HEM, in HS, in health, I mean hazard and effect management process? Just put it down for me. So, gentlemen, I've given you an expo, but you never can tell whether I will recoin it when I can still recoin it, but asking the same question. I don't want to forget. Just help me note it down. It's a good question to ask. So the key objective, the key purpose of providing control measure is to prevent the hazard from impacting people, assets, or reputation, or the environment. Let me now ask you a question. Let's go back to what we are discussing. What if, as this guy is up walking, just paint any scenario. He's standing on the ladder. Let me give you the scenario. Let's paint a worst case scenario. They are government people, for example. You know, the problem with government people is how do I put it? Maybe it is changing. Is due diligence sometimes. Taking care of things. There's this belief that government property no be your father property. And it's a very wrong notion that we hold. And it makes us to run our country as if it's not anybody's business. It's our business, our father's property. You understand? So, but that has been our common attitude. This ladder they are using, they've been using it for many years. Nobody has checked whether the ladder can still withstand weight. Remember I told you they went with safety belt. Luckily, because the ladder has been functioning, nobody has fallen before. So they have not even, for many years, also checked whether this safety belt, we call it harness. Please, I'm using the word safety belt so that you can connect. You see it in PPE. We call it harness. 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 That's what we call it in HSC. You understand? So imagine, I need you to follow me in my scenario so that you can answer properly. Imagine that the guy was walking at the pole up there. He did the right thing. He clipped himself with the harness or the safety belt on the pole, just in case the ladder failed. As he was walking, the ladder now lost position. You know what I mean by lost position? It shifted. And guess what happened? What will happen if the guy was not with the safety belt? What will happen? He will just crumble. But now that he's with safety belt, what will happen if the ladder fails? It will sustain him. Am I correct? If the ladder fails and the safety belt is functional and sustains him, is he going to sustain injury when the safety belt holds him back? Think about it. Paint the scenario in your mind. Somebody is up and ladder suddenly slipped and went off, but the safety belt held him. Is there going to be any form of injury?
Yeah, be a little bit of injury.
Come again, sir.
I said there may be a little bit of injury.
That is the language. There definitely will be a level of injury. But the severity of the injury he will sustain will be little compared to when there was no backup at all like that harness. Am I correct? So what is the point? That harness is a recovery measure. What is a recovery measure? The measure you put in place in case control fails in order to reduce the level of accident. So let me speak it very well. Architect, you help me again with that. Let me speak it. What is the purpose of recovery measure in hemp? The purpose of recovery measure in managing hazard is to reduce the effect of the accident that will occur when control fails. That's the purpose. Like you rightly say, my dear, if there was no harness, the guy will crumble. And instead to imagine worst case scenario, imagine him falling without harness or from that height of the pole down. Imagine worst case scenario. For me, what do I imagine? I imagine that there were some sharp stones. You understand, with sharp edge right at the foot of the pole. And as he was falling, piang, it went through his skull. And what happens? Death. But because of harness, what happened? Maybe as the harness held him, he may have some bruises, or maybe he hit his head on the pole, and luckily if he had his helmet well kitted, he would just have maybe a little kind of pain. But if he also didn't put on a helmet, he probably will have a kind of a hard knock. My dear, you're welcome. Is that okay? But the effects will never be the same as when there was no harness. Everybody answer this question. Your seat belt in your car, is it a control measure or a recovery measure? Remember what I told you control measure is, maybe to refresh you. Control measures prevent hazard from impacting, meaning okay, let me not give you further clue. Recovery measure reduces the effect of the accident if control fails. The seat belt we use in our cars, is that a control measure or a recovery measure?
The recovery measure.
Thank you. Yes, it is a recovery measure. Why? Because it only comes to effect when control fails. What's our control measures in a vehicle? Your braking system is a control measure. Your dashboard, your speed meter reading is a control measure. You understand? Is a control measure. And maybe some other, maybe your steering, some other installations like your mirror is also a control measure. Let me ask you a question. Please think deep and answer. I made a comment. I say if control fails, recovery measure is there as a backup to reduce the effect of the accident. What if, as the guy was walking up there, the ladder failed, and as he was thinking that the harness will hold him, the harness also cut? What will be the next procedure to follow? Please, you're free to answer everywhere, everyone, whether in class or on Zoom. Did you get my scenario? The guy was walking at the pole there. The ladder now fell, and then he was putting on the harness we're talking about. Before you know it, he was thinking this harness will hold on. Harness too, don't cut. Since I said if control fails, recovery will back up to reduce the effect of the accident. What if now recovery has failed? If harness cut, recovery has failed. So my question is, what will you do when recovery measure fails also? What will you do? You pray to God. You commit your soul to God. Anybody have a feedback? Let me check the chat box. Oh yeah, Theophilus is very, very, I have just said what most of us, he said pray. He said you should go into prayer. Theophilus, thank you. Any other one? Okay, Janet is also saying just pray. and all that. Hand over everything to God. All right. Any other person saying anything? All right. Let's save our time. When recovery measure fails, we activate emergency procedure. We believe in God. In safety, we make sure we have plans all the way. Are we together? God does not also want us to be without plan. So once recovery fails, we activate emergency procedure. An example of emergency is first aid. And that is why in a complete team, you must have your safety officer, and you must have your first aider. And in all the things, what you identified, your information in terms of the likelihood and the level of effect you got from assessing the hazards, the control measures you want to use to manage each of the hazards, the recovery measures for each of the controls you have put in place, put everything in document. Like I said, just put a landscape of your document like this: hazard, effect, the likelihood, and the severity of the effect you put in, which is assessment information, the measure we use to control it, and the recovery for each of mine. That you put it just in summary like that. Once you do it like that, we say you have documented it. Let me move to the next issue. There's what we call JHA.
I have a question.
Please, sir.
Hello?
I'm all ears, please.
Okay, this question will be coming from last week to from what you just mentioned now. So from last week's talk, you made us understand that accidents can be prevented at all times. So in this scenario that you painted, that was the ladder falls and the harness cut as well, how would that be the fault of either of the people working for the company?
Okay, remember that the hazard in the contest is 4, and we said any work at height, the vulnerability in terms of the common hazard that we have that exists is 4. Does it mean that when anybody work at height, the person will automatically fall? No. And that is why in trying to make sure fall does not happen, we decided to put measures to prevent, so the word accident can be prevented comes to play. And what are those measures? We brought our ladder to prevent. We brought in our ladder to make sure there is no fall. And we even let me control the person. And we went ahead to have a backup for the ladder, that's recovery measure, to also make sure that even if it fails, let's still reduce it. Now, when we say that accident can be prevented, we were not saying that accident cannot happen. But what we're saying is that accidents are not natural consequences of our daily routines. And we're saying that accidents are not inevitable. So it can be prevented doesn't mean that it cannot happen. When you say something can be prevented, the other question is, what happens if I don't prevent it? It will then happen. You understand? So for the hazard, for the ladder to have failed, something happened. One, somebody who placed the hazard didn't check whether the placing was well placed. Two, the people who used the ladder did not confirm if the rungs on the ladder are still maintaining their integrity and strength. They didn't do all those testing, which now comes under what we call unsafe act. If somebody did not do all those checking, that was an unsafe act. If the rungs of the ladder are already in bad shape and we are using it, it means the ladder is in an unsafe condition. If the ladder was positioned in an unstable manner, that they can easily slip and fall. That's an unsafe condition. And those are the two possible things that made the ladder to slip and go off position. And then therefore the hazard now impacted and we call it accident. I don't know whether that was helpful, sir.
Yes, it was. Thank you very much.
Hemp, I'm not going to spend time here because it's just the same thing I have discussed earlier. There's a practice in safety we call JHA. Don't forget it. Don't forget it. From now on, from now going on, all I'll be discussing with you is practices, practices, practices. You understand? I think I have I've talked about some principles. We're talking about what are those practices that we uphold in organization to make sure that people are protected, and other three are also protected. So we're talking about practices from now on. So one of them is JHA. What is JHA? Job hazard analysis. What is the practice about? We are simply saying, never embark on any job, on any task, without first of all, you and your team sit down and find out the hazard associated with that task. It can be a roundtable discussion. It can be a stand-up discussion. It can be a full-day discussion, depending on the complexity of the work in question. But the simple question you want to answer is, this job we want to do, what will be the hazard where they inside? How will take manager make you know affect us? What do? You have to apply the 4 principles. What we are simply saying is apply the 4 principles of hemp across every work you are doing. In a very summary and brief language, when you apply the 4 procedures of hemp across every one assignment you are carrying out, we now say you are doing job hazard analysis, JHA. How does it work? You're given a painting, you're given a job to paint, for example. Before you embark on that painting job, sit down with other people who will be involved to now say, this painting, what are the various aspects of it involved? What are the various tasks involved in the painting? So we need to buy the paint, we need to scrape the walls, we need to mask, we need to remove anything on the wall, we need to screed. You understand? You identify all the tasks. You now ask, when it comes to screeding, what will be the hazard where we go meet? What hazard is associated with screeding? When it comes to now, what do you call it? Scraping the wall. What hazard? I'm sure you can identify one. When you're scraping, you can possibly be inhaling some dust. Am I correct? Your eyes may also be impacted because some particulate may blindfold you. You understand? You may also you may even have some of us catarrh, breathing conditions. Come again. And your eyes. You understand? So you begin to list them. Now you're not asking, when it comes to painting, what is the painting proper? What hazard is involved in applying the paint? What do I mean? If you're conducting JHA, usually first thing first, identify the job you want to do. 2, break that job into the individual task involved. And then for each of the tasks, you begin to identify the hazard. Once you identify the hazard, you identify the effect, and then you assess it as I told you earlier, and then you begin to think about what control measure and what recovery measure should I put in place. When do you perform and where do you perform JHA? Routine tasks that have the potential for serious accident or have history of incident. sometimes somebody may say, we don't dey do this work like many times now. We don't do the JHA 5 years. I beg, we'll just continue. No. A routine task that has a history of accident, anytime you want to do that task again, you must do a JHA. It's not a question say we don't do them for the past 100 years. No. As long as that task is known to always, accident is known to always occur, meaning people are always getting injured, you understand, or assets always getting that, or something like getting damaged. No, even if you do that task 3 times in a week, for each of those times you must do JHA. Routine tasks that are being carried out in an unusual circumstances. It's a task we are doing, but the only thing is that this time around we want to carry it out when it is raining. The other time when we do this task, rain don't used to fall, but this time it's in a raining situation. The circumstance is different, so you need to do a JHA to know whether there are other hazards that you never knew that the new circumstance is introducing. Non-routine task or one-off task, that one is not negotiable. Any task that is done once in a while, anytime you want to carry it out, JHA need to be done. New task or tasks introducing new work method. Of course, if it's a new task, obviously I need to do a JHA. If it is task that is not new, but we are using a new method to do the task we've been doing, then JHA need to be carried out, just in case the new method is actually the source of the hazard. So the question is, who performed JHA? It's always advisable that one person should never be the one carrying out doing the JHA. Why? Because, my dear, in a work, a lot of units are involved, a lot of specialization. Maybe you need, if it's in building, you need someone who is into bricklaying, you need someone who is electrical, you need someone who is maybe plumbing and all that. And maybe you are a surveyor or maybe an architect. As an architect, you can never know every hazard associated with building assignment. So because a lot of tasks involve people from different discipline, when it comes to coming up with the JHA for a job, it is a multidisciplinary task. Involve everyone from each angle of the discipline involved that are required in that job. Since a plumber is going to work, let's bring plumbers so they can tell us hazard associated with their own work. Let's bring in electrical guys, they can tell us. Let's bring in the guys who are into installation of what do you call it, elevators. They will also, let's bring in the guys who are into installation of AC, they will tell us, and all that. Everybody who has anything to do, a representation of such task must be available in that meeting, because only them can tell us the actual hazard they encounter in their own aspect of the job. That is why JHA is based on by a team of people. And I've told you how the team is made up. How do we conduct JHA? The most common is discussion method. Discussion method means we come together, all this team of people I talked about, and we look at our history of the previous similar task we've done, and we begin to call up, you understand, what we feel at the hazard, which is also the same as what we call recall and check. Recall means check, recall on what the similar work you've done, confirm whether you should anticipate similar thing like that also. Observation can also be used as a support, in the sense that as work is going on, we can still be observing to know whether there are other hazards we never knew. Let me say it, hazard identification is not a one-off thing. Even while work is going on, we still need to observe to see if there are other hazards that we need to pay attention. So your JHA report can look like this. Like I said earlier, I don't know whether, yes, okay, I never told you, I talked about the steps. Let me just review, in as much as I have said it, but let me just still show you. I said the step one in cardinal JHA is select the job you want to analyze. The step two is, I say, break it down into tasks. That's when I say, okay, let's say we are trying to paint. I say, okay, what are the, that's the job, we selected painting. Break it into tasks. I say, okay, what are the tasks involved? We're going to script. I mentioned we're going to script. We're going to probably mask, move window. Those are tasks. And once you've identified the task, and I say you now begin to identify the hazard in each of those tasks. You understand? And then you provide the control measures and then the recovery measure for each of them. So this can be a simple format to reflect your JHA, the task in the job you want to do, the possible hazard, the hazard and the possible injuries, that's the effect, and then your control measures and your recovery measures, what we call preventive measures you want to put in place. And that helps. Let me go to another subject for the day. Just a moment. So let's go to PPE, another practice in safety. What is PPE? What's that? Personal protective equipment. The picture has already given us explanation what it is. Am I correct? Yes, I think the picture is a very beautiful summary. You understand? And what is PPE? Those things that workers put on to further enhance their safety. We call it personal protective equipment. Before I go to making some few points I want to share about PPE, please, I want to call your attention to that word personal. Now, only when you wear them, now it will protect you. You want to give me an example? In as much as they are there, you can still call it out. What are the examples of PPE? Helmet. Okay, yeah. Safety goggle, yes. We call it, you say glass. We call it, you say goggle or face shield, something like that. Go ahead. Earmuff. Earmuff. Yes, that's that one. What's the next? Reflective jacket. Yes. What's the next? Hand glove. Yes. There's a safety boot. Yes. Okay, yes, there's a nose mask as well. Another, thank you. And the list can really go on and on. There could be coverall, which is not reflected there because it's putting on a life jacket, sort of, and all that. We'll see more of them as we go. But the point is, the very, very first point I want to make is PPE is a control measure. I want to say it again. I want to say it like 3 times until it sinks. PPE is a control measure. We just finished talking about control measure. You understand? It's a control measure. 3, PPE is a control measure. But listen to this next thing I want to say. In as much as PPE is a control measure, it must never be your first line of control measure. Never at any time you identify hazard, you say, maybe we'll go buy PPE, make people wear. PPE should be the last resort. When I say last resort, I mean should be the last defense mechanism for protecting people. What should be the first option when you provide control measure? Any control measure that protects everyone at once. Let me give you an example. You work in a place where the machines are producing high sound above, I think, whether 80 decibel. Please confirm that the level of sound that your ear can tolerate is about 80 decibel and below. Decibel, dB, is the unit with which we measure sound. Any sound that is above 80 decibel is said to be injurious, hazardous to your eardrum. So let's imagine you people in your work environment, the equipment are producing sound very high and above that. And you want to control that hazard of noise. Your first thought should never be, may we buy earmuff, give people. No. And I'm going to explain why very soon. Your first thought should be, okay, are you with me? Your first thought should be, how can we make sure that this sound is cut off from everybody at once? That is providing what we call a safe workplace. We can do that. How do we achieve that? We can decide, it's okay, let's build an acoustic system around the source of the sound. What you call soundproof system, so that it can contain the sound within its source. That way, everybody is protected. The most effective control measure is the one that tends to protect everyone in the organization. The less effective control measure is the one that is individualistic, like your PPE. Do you know why it's less effective? Most people don't use it. Give somebody a hand glove to work with. They give us reasons. So let's talk about that. Please share your thoughts with me. Also, use the chat box so that we can reduce the sound from the mics. You understand? Why do you think people find it difficult to use, workers find it difficult to use the PPE they are given most sometimes? You give somebody helmet, you know, go wear it. You give somebody earmuff, you go put on like say be DJ. You give somebody what they call it, hand glove. It will tell you, give you one excuse or the other. Why? Share with me. What are those excuses? Oh, they think I can't. My hand is sweating. It is coming within the definition of uncomfortable. Am I correct? Yes. So some people say, "Ah, no, this is not comfortable now." You know that reason? You say ignorance. Yes. Some of them don't even know that this thing is meant for their own protection. Thank you. Any other reason? Come again. Okay, some maybe they even have a health issue. Maybe they already breathing is a difficult thing for them, and you now say they should use something to cover nose again. Any other reason? Let me check the chat box. Yes. What do you call it? Nonchalant attitude, because it's heavy. They are not used to them. Somebody is saying that, yeah. Negligence, lack of proper orientation, I agree. It makes people feel uneasy, correct? At times, it doesn't give them comfort. Awesome. It's because it's not comfortable. Thank you. Laziness or fashion. Theophilus, that your fashion is on point. Let me talk about fashion. Do you know some people don't use certain coverall because they say it makes them to lose their shape? Female colleagues have that excuse. You know coverall. You give a female colleague a worker a coverall. It's not going to use them. You say why? I can't look like side the man. You understand? No shape. I look shapeless. Check some of the coveralls. They have put raw elastic material at the waist. It is this fashion issue that brought about that largely. So that when our female wear it, they still want to have that their figure 8 come out. Somebody say yes now. You understand? You see, when it comes to selection of PP, we don't throw away any excuse. You understand? We don't throw away any excuse. So when people say, "Ah no, it make me like a sack, you can't give me away," that's why we put that. And that's why you see the women will prefer to take the one that has that elastic in the middle, you understand, and so on. Let me still see what some people wrote. Most time due to emergency. It's true. I beg, leave this PPE, let quickly go do this thing. And it happened. You understand? And sometimes, how can I use the language over experience? I don't know whether I'm capturing it well, but it's a situation whereby somebody is saying, I've done this thing like since I was born. I know everything. I don't need PPE to get this work done. I think it's still within the definition of attitude. What is feeling, I beg, can do without it. I've had people also say, it will slow me down. As you say, if I put on this PPE like hand glove, I won't be effective. You understand? Hand glove make me not to be fast. I've had electrical people say, I better leave this hand glove thing, I can hold my breath. And it will not shock me. You understand? All this, some of them revolve around attitude. But indeed, we don't throw away any excuse because we want to make sure that people... Another excuse people give is issue of seniority. You hear people say, how can I and this junior staff wear the same PPE? It's a big problem in organizations. And that is what brought about senior staff white color cover-up, junior staff orange color sometimes. So they use color code to differentiate it. So if you see me wear white, you know say I be area father. You understand? And when I see you wear orange, this one is one of those junior staffs. This is always the problem with the senior staff people. They will not say me and Jean. When I was leaving my master's degree, that's when she was born. They will bring matters like that to you. Don't throw that excuse away. What will it cost us? Color. You understand? Even to the point of helmet, hard hat. Say, no, this one a junior staff hard hat. I can't wear this. No problem. We'll buy green for senior staff. And we'll buy yellow for junior staff or white. No problem. When it comes to the use of PPE or deploying PPE, employer, the company has a responsibility and the employees have responsibility. The responsibility of organization is to perform hazard analysis so as to know the hazard that we're interacting with, and that will enable them to know what kind of PPE to buy in the market. The responsibility of the company is also to identify the right PPE that employees need to use. When we provide this PPE, when we buy them, the company is also responsible to train us. Never assume that you can use all PPEs. It's an equipment and you need to be trained on how to use it. The first time I used life jacket, you know what we call life jacket, for water-related operations, I was taught on how to use it for it to keep me afloat. You understand? I was taught that when you put on your life jacket and you don't set it in a way as to hug your skin, to be very hugging on your body, it will not protect you. In the sense that life jacket is meant to see you as an object that it can keep afloat. How many of us have used life jacket before? Maybe you need to visit a swimming pool and use one. You understand? And you just drop into the water. Make sure there's somebody. If you don't swim, make sure there's somebody to guide you. And you discover that it will always keep you afloat. Exactly. I had an experience of swimming in the Indian Ocean just about 2 weeks, about 2 weeks ago. You understand? My confidence to jump in was because I was with life jacket. You know what's an Indian Ocean? After Atlantic, Pacific, we have 3 major oceans: Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Ocean. In as much as the wave of Indian Ocean is more gentle as compared to Atlantic, but the sea wave understand? I think that's also the period I saw Dunphy for the first time live. You understand? Another. But there was fear. Why should I jump into an ocean? This is not a swimming pool. But my confidence was I'm putting on life jackets and it will keep me afloat. And there was an instructor, as in the tour guide who was taking, it was tourism. The tour guide was there, who was also a swimmer. He said, "Don't worry, I'm here for anything." So I was able to jump. And when I jumped in, I was actually afloat. You understand? Life jacket only protects you if you're able to hold, if it hugs the body. What's the point? When PPE is provided, the organization's responsibility is also to train us on how to use the PPE. There are some helmets that if you don't set it very well, when there's a hard knock on it, it will impact you. But when you set it very well, when there's a knock on it, it bounces. You understand? We are to be trained on how to take care of the PPE. We are to be trained on how to maintain it, on how to replace it when it is worn out as well. It is the organization responsibility to maintain those PPE also, to periodically review and replace it if it is no more effective. I ask this question, since it is organization's responsibility to provide and maintain your PPE. Maintenance here means replace when necessary. What if you work in a place, you are being paid 1.3 million naira on monthly basis, but the hazard in that place is very high. The common PPE that they use there is safety boot, hard hat, and earmuff. On resumption, one of the things they're supposed to give you is your own hard hat, safety boot, and earmuff. But the person in charge of PPE now said to you, "We are out of stock. We'll make it available very soon." And that very soon, 1 week went, nothing happened. 2 weeks went. And all this 1 week, you've been dodging stone because you guys are into quarrying, your blast rock and you quarry. As it's coming, you're dodging. You've been dodging stone. Some of them, in fact, when you leave your house, you take 30 minutes to beg God to protect you. 2 weeks, they never give you peace. What will you do? You do what? Or you resign? Which of them? Nobody will resign from a job of 1.3 million naira. I think that 300,000 naira is more than enough to go and get a PPE for myself. Why did I bring that scenario? Situation whereby a company did not provide for you, in as much as it's company's responsibility. This is my comment. Take personal responsibility for your own safety. Meaning, go get one for yourself. Ego, my sister, 1 minute is a honor. For those of us on Zoom that didn't hear her, she said, because if you die, the work will continue. And truly, I'll say, let's give 1 minute silence. And the annoying thing is that it's usually not up to 1 minute. And they say, may the gentle soul, it's not even up to 1 minute, they will stand and give that honor. You get it? So please, like she said, if anything happened to you, business is a continuum. It will continue. All right. What about for me as an employee? What's my responsibility towards PPE? I'm to put it on properly. I'm to attend to training sessions on PPE. I'm to make sure I take care of my PPE, clean it, maintain it. You understand? It is my responsibility to tell my supervisor, say, this my safety boot, don't spoil. I need another one for replacement. When selecting PPE, I think I made this comment, I won't delay here. Take into consideration all the concerns of employees. You say fashion, they want the one where they fashionable, I beg. Don't go and tell them that work we can't do here. Waiting concern you with fashion and work. Remember, now for workplace, some people they find love. So it's possible also that the lady is true at the end of the day, when you're out of university, the next point where you're having the place you had a community as an adult is university or high institution. The next place as an adult, you have another community where you have network. It during youth service. Once after that, it tends to reduce. Because your life may become now, it's 9 o'clock, I need to be at work. Boom, you zoom. Before, depending on the nature of your work, you may actually just be on that desk until 5. And then you find yourself home. Depending on the kind of work, you may also be working on Saturday. Your social life is impacted. Networking is little. So if I'm a lady, I begin to also promote myself, even in the workplace, whether my husband is right here. So when they say that PP is not fashionable, you need to listen to them. Employers must consider fit, must consider comfort when selecting PPE. Most protective devices are available in sizes. Please, let's get the right size for everybody. If you give somebody a PPE that is oversized, it becomes an unsafe condition. Say it out. Say it out. Not the type, the NYC, the kit. Some of us, when they give us kits in NYC, we visit Mami Market in those days to go and tell them, I better measure me properly and trim this thing and all that. If several size types of PPE are worn, make sure they are compatible. If PPE do not fit properly, it can make no difference between being safely covered or being dangerously exposed. You understand? When you're training workers on PPE, tell them what like my brother said, ignorance. Tell them when the PPE is necessary. So that person not going to wear him overall, they go canteen. Some people, to show us that they are health practitioners, they will wear their coverall to come for a particular maybe lunch. Tell people this is when we wear it, this is when we use it. Tell them what it is necessary for. That will bring in commitment for use. This PPE is intended to make sure that when the stones are flying, in case they come near you, it no go enter your head. It will just hit on the hard hat. Is that okay? Understand? Tell them how to properly put it on, take it off, adjust it, and wear it. Tell them what the PPE cannot do for them. You know, some of us used to feel that because I'm putting on Italian safety boot, this safety boot Italian, we imported it $1,500. He said this one, in the bend nail. Bring any nail, I go bend that. So because of putting on Italian safety boots, you now use it to test on a nail. No, it's not done. Every PPE has a limitation. PPE does not indemnify. The word indemnify, if I want to use our everyday language, is it does not make you untouchable. You understand? So let people know the limitation. Let people know during the training how to properly care for it, how to maintain it, how long it can stay and it will expire. That's what we call useful life, and how it is to be disposed. So I won't take time here because I think you can look at it yourself. So we have hard hat. Please, helmet is also called hard hat. You understand? We have hard hat. And there are different types. So you look at it. We have class A, we have class B, we have class C hard hat used for different purposes as well. For protecting the eyes, we have what we call the different types of goggles. You can see the ones that we have here. What's the difference? Anybody? What difference between these two? This one have vents for air. This one does not have vents for air. You understand? So, or rather, can we say this one has direct vent, direct vent, and this has indirect vent? Then the other glasses, we have these safety glasses. We have for those who look at who glare, maybe at a sharp light, lightning or gas. People are into wedding. You see, they can wear this to dampen the strength of the light they are looking at. Also, we have this for face protection. For protecting your ear, we have different one. We have the cotton ear plug, plastic. We have the foam. Then we have the ear muff. The difference between ear plug and ear muff. Ear muff covers your pinna also. Ear plug enters a little at the passage. You understand? So we explain how to use it as well. For breathing PPE, we have this guy is going into a confined space. I said we'll talk about confined space. We have one we call this air purifying. This is air purifying breathing apparatus. The difference between air purifying and the one we call air supplying is this is not connected to oxygen source. Air purifying, like the name goes, is just for you not to inhale other toxic elements in the air, but you only use it if oxygen level is okay. So it's just that there are other contaminants in the air. You understand? So we have the air supplying, which is usually used when oxygen is deficient, like I said, less than 19.5, then you need to use air supplying breathing apparatus and self-contained breathing apparatus. So this is still another variation of it. We have the hand gloves for different work, common task hand glove for people who handle chemicals, people who hold something that is hot, that is heat resistant, for cold. For those of us who are planning holiday to Europe or to America this period, you may need to go look for something like the cold resistant hand glove, because I think this winter and it will only increase more as the months, weeks go by. For people who are cutting like meat sellers, sometimes you feel they talk, you don't know, say knife don't go. So they have a hand glove. The difference, one of the unique thing about the hand glove, it is meshed with wire so that it does not cut easily in because of those wires inside. You understand? We have hand glove for people who do heating, who heat, like to provide that anti-shock. We have disposable, we have a hand glove for electrical works. And so you can see there are many hand gloves. So it depends on the kind of work. All hand glove is not for all kind of work. So please be guided when you're picking hand glove to know what the work you do. I talked about harness. They can be full body harness, something like this. They can be general purpose harness, something like this as well. So full protection, that's the safety boot we talked about. We also have the coverall, overall, so we call it apron as well. So an apron for different work. It's a general purpose apron. Everybody knows that. Apron when you're walking in a high temperature area, you understand, so as to prevent you from having much heat because the place is already hot. You understand? So we now have low temperature working condition as well. Like I said, people who work in cold region and all that. Anti-electrostatic work clothing, heat resistant aprons as well. And then we have apron that does not allow some chemicals to permeate, like we have over there. Light jacket, reflective light jacket. People who are doing some cutting, it's just a large scale of the material they use for the hand glove for cutting. We use it for apron as well. So, okay, beautiful. Okay, just to show us there. But this thing I have said is that PPE do not indemnify the worker. Doesn't make you untouchable. A worker is there for making a great mistake if he deliberately exposes himself to risk just because you're putting on PPE. You understand? Because you're putting on fire suit or fire jacket, you now enter where fire they burn. Tell people say this they burn. Once you wear it, you no go feel burn. You understand? You go burn. The only thing about fire jacket is that they increased the ignition temperature, meaning they make sure that it take a longer time before it can ignite. It doesn't mean to not ignite. And the intention is I can put it on, zoom in, maybe rescue someone or rescue important something and zoom out. It's not for me to go there and say, guy, why should you say this my new Apple phone, even for fire, the thing they work. You understand? It doesn't, it's not that way. It doesn't indemnify anybody. All right, so we have permit to work system. Let's talk about that practice also. How many minutes do I have left? Say 30 minutes more. Okay. So let me explain. Let me explain the practice we call permit to work. Maybe for some of us, we've heard about permit to work when it has to do with working outside Nigeria. If you're applying for work outside the country, they say get your permit to work. I just want to clarify that that's not the permit to work we're talking about. You understand? This particular one is a safety document. You understand? That authorizes you to go ahead and carry out the task you have been given to do. Now, as a measure, you need to listen to me closely because I want to just explain, and then later on when you look at the material, you can better connect. As a measure to ensure that proper things has been done to prevent accident from happening before we embark on a job. One, with the background that some jobs are very hazardous, and if we are not proactive to put measures in place, accidents may likely happen in those things. I'll give you an example. Imagine somebody going to, most of the drainages here in the central area are underground. Sometimes it gets blocked, and we need to probably find a way to unblock it. Sometimes the only way to unblock it could be to send human being in, when other methods are not giving us results, to actually go and find a way to unblock it. Imagine somebody entering inside the tunnel to walk. Just imagine it. Before such an assignment can be done, it's very hazardous. Before such an assignment can be done, we need to make sure that the proper things have been put in place by relevant actors in that activity to make sure no eventuality occurs. How do we ensure that these various actors have done what they are supposed to, have put in place what they are supposed to put in place? To make sure that happens, company comes up with a practice that before this work will happen, come and collect permits from, what's your name? Rashida. You say, before you can carry out this work, Rashida must give you a permit to do it. Without the permit, you cannot lift a stone, a pin on this work. So I'm the one who is to do the work. She is the one who is to supervise me. Now, I will come to Rashida and say, ma'am, we want to go ahead and carry out this work. She will tell me, Amadi, let me see your permit. That she was supposed to give me permit. I say, ma'am, that's why I'm here. I've not collected permit. I need permit to go ahead. He said, Amadi, can I see your JHA report? What JHA? Job hazard analysis. What is expected of Rashida is to ask me of my JHA report. Meaning, let me see a report that shows that you have sat down with relevant people that will be part of this job to identify the hazard you're going to encounter, and also you have put measures to prevent them. And I say, ma, I have not done it. She will not give me a permit. She will say, Amadi, go get the JHA for this job done. I'll go back. I'll do the JHA. I'll bring it back to her. She'll now look at it. Because she is a competent person, the meaning of competence here means this job I want to do, she's Sabia. She knows the hazard associated. She knows the control measure that does not give a good result. So when she look at my JHA report, she's like, Amadi, this one where you say to prevent fire, this measure me, it doesn't work. So I don't accept it. Go and put another measure for your fire prevention on this work. Did you see that she rejected? I mean, she didn't give me JHA. She asked me to go and correct something. She didn't give me permission. She asked me to go and correct something on my JHA. I'll come back to drawing table. That can happen back and forth until she's satisfied. Why is she doing that? She wants to make sure that every measure is in place to prevent accident from happening. Once she's satisfied with my JHA, she will raise a permit. A permit is just a document that authorizes you to go ahead and do a job. That permit will spell out the hazard involved and the control measures because of the JHA. Guess what? When she raises a permit, she will not give it to me. She will send it to my supervisor. When it comes to my supervisor, she has signed. Rashida has signed as a competent person who is raising the JHA. But she sends it to the supervisor. There's a place for the supervisor to sign. When it comes to my supervisor is not expected to say, Madam Rashida have signed now. Who am I not to sign since she has signed? A lie. Why is coming to you, supervisor, is take time and check again whether there are things that need to be done that Madam Rashida omitted because she's a human being. Maybe she didn't see it. Now it has come to you, may see that gap. And the supervisor will say, Amadi, this is your gas test, atmospheric gas test you did. When did you do it? I said, I did it, that was 6 weeks ago. He said, hey, because this value you wrote here, I'm not too sure that's the value as we speak. I can't sign this document. Go and repeat your gas test. Do you see what is happening there? Everybody is making sure that things are in place. After she is satisfied, she will sign. If there is still any other person who need to view, the document will keep moving until finally it gets to me and I'll sign my part. Guess what? You see, everyone who signed that document, if anything happened during the work, accident occur, you're going to be held responsible. That is why issuing permits go through rigorous process. In a place like Shell, depending on the level of the accident, if accident happens in a work, they will ask, who are the people who signed the permit? And sometimes it comes with a sanction, big one. Don't forget that the goal of permit is just a document, though, but the whole essence is just want to make sure appropriate measures have been put in place to prevent eventualities. Mark my statement, a good permit should not last more than 1 or 2 weeks, and it will expire. So if you have a work that will last for 6 months, if you have a work that will last for 6 years, we'll give you 2 weeks permit. Think about it. Why? We'll not give you 6 years or 6 weeks permit or 6 month permit. Give you 2 weeks permit. Guess why? Because we want you to keep coming back, for us to keep reviewing to know whether the measures that we put in place are still effective. If we give you 6 weeks permit, you go dump permit, no go. But when you come back every week or 2 weeks, we are rehearsing again. Now the hazard where they this work be this, so now the best way to manage and be this, so please let's do so. Let me stop here for today. I think so that you can have time to rest. Everyone, thank you for your time. I will end my discussion here today, so you can have a little, maybe 10 or 15 minutes to rest, and then for those of us that have another class, so that you can embark. Most likely to wrap up, yes. Let's see how it goes. Guys on Zoom, I'm grateful. Thank you. Thank you for being in class, everyone. So the class ends now for health and safety. Please, you know the time for your next class. Please, let's join appropriately. I decided to end a little earlier so that you can grab coffee, grab breakfast, grab water, grab air, and then you come back. Thank you. See you later by God's grace.